82-year-old Mitch McConnell has announced that he is resigning later at the end of November. Want to go to the great senator from Wisconsin, Ron Johnson. Senator, how are you, sir?
Good morning, Mike. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Good, really good. Good to talk to you. What are your thoughts on Mitch resigning in November?
Well, I think it gives us an opportunity. I personally appreciate the fact that he announced now to give us the time to go through a process. I want our conference to really take a look at what we're about. I'm suggesting we develop a mission statement. I come from the private sector. I think that's important that an organization knows what it's trying to accomplish, establish goals, and then hopefully leaders will emerge from that process and will commit to that mission statement in a far more collaborative process of leading the conference. So this is going to take weeks, maybe months, and I appreciate the fact that Leader McConnell gave us that time to do so.
And I appreciate how you pivoted right to the future. Let me ask you one or two more questions about the past first. How should we look back on the legacy of Mitch McConnell's 17 years of leadership?
Well, to stay positive, I think his supreme moment of leadership was after the tragic death of Justice Scalia. He immediately came out and said, let's let the American people decide the direction of the court. That was the right call. It was very helpful, I think, in 2016 election. And we end up with a conservative court because the American people decided to elect Donald Trump and put Republicans in a majority in the Senate so we can confirm some conservative justices. So I think that was the supreme moment of leadership.
Yeah, that's definitely my go-to. Mitch McConnell, it's a funny situation because if you look up, I Googled worst of Mitch McConnell or something, and it's everything from the left, right? It's the Kentucky AFL-CIO and Robert Reich saying, goodbye, Mitch, you were the worst. So people on the left hate him, but then the conservatives don't like Mitch McConnell either. Is that just the nature of the job, or did he do some really bad things for conservatives too?
Well, you want to look at his long-term record on debt and deficit. I would not call him a deficit hawk. He entered leadership with our debt under $10 trillion, and now it's $35 trillion. And over that entire time period, there's only one person that was in the room with every debt ceiling negotiation, every appropriation, every budget negotiation. That was Mitch McConnell. So that doesn't have a very sterling record from that standpoint. Republican tax reform. I wasn't real supportive of that bill. I dug my heels in because we were going to basically leave 95% of American businesses behind. In the end, we passed a bill that only lasts 8 years for those 95% of businesses. So that was Paul Ryan, that was Mitch McConnell, that was Donald Trump at the helm with that. So here we face a fiscal cliff. So again, I come from the business world. It doesn't you don't do yourself any favors by papering over failure. And that tax reform, the fact that it expires in 2026 is not a success.
Okay, so from you being a business guy, going to the world of D.C. must be incredibly frustrating. So I think most of our audience now, right? So I can just leave it there. Let me just leave it there. You go ahead. What's so frustrating about it?
Oh, beyond frustrating. In the private sector, organizations to survive have to function, right? You have to have vision and mission statements. You have to establish goals. The people in your organization have to know what those are, and they have to know their role here. That's not what Congress is. I mean, this is the most dysfunctional place. It's jaw-dropping how dysfunctional it is. And take a look at it. We're almost halfway through the fiscal year. We still haven't funded it, other than stopgap continuing resolutions, and that's both sides' fault. McCarthy, when he was in charge of the House, he did pass appropriation bills and start putting pressure on the Senate. Schumer certainly hasn't. Look at what just happened on the border. The American people want a secure border. All we ask in these first of all, we didn't ask for secret negotiations. This should have been a public debate. But all we were asking for was a forcing mechanism to force Biden to use the authority he had to secure the border. Now, we'd have been happy to strengthen his authority, but Trump had enough authority to secure the border. Again, not as strong as it could have been. But then Biden used the exact same authority to open up the border. He has the authority. So we weren't looking for an immigration bill that would make matters worse, but that's what the secret negotiations provided us. So it's insane. When the American people demand something, when you've got an issue that the public's on your side, why would you close yourself behind, closed doors and try and negotiate something awful in secret. It makes no sense. I mean, so that dysfunction is just, again, from a private sector guy like myself, it's beyond frustrating.
Totally. So, and I think everyone listening now, understands the skill sets that are necessary to be successful in business. And you have them or you don't. But the skill sets that are necessary to be successful as a Senate majority leader, I think are very different. And I don't even know what they are. So that's what I want to ask you. Like, how do you get that much power and hold that much power and navigate that much power in a productive way? What are those skill sets?
I think it's within the dysfunction. You have a game plan for accomplishing it. You know, raising a lot of money for incumbents is probably helpful. But, you know, you said successful. Name me a successful member of Congress here. I mean, when you take a look at the fact that we're $35 billion in debt, you know, when you
Chuck
see
Schumer
what's
and
happening to
Nancy
our
Pelosi.
country, I'm not seeing a whole lot of success here. I mean, I hate to be Debbie Downer here. I often tell audiences I'm not the most uplifting character, but our nation's in peril. I haven't seen much success here in 13 years in Congress. I see a lot of failure.
I think Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi are wildly successful. So the question is, why can't the Republicans be successful? Or
they're successful at destroying this country. I guess
Sure.
You can call it success, but that's what they're doing.
Yeah. Okay, so I asked that because there are great ideologically conservative men and women in the Senate, you being one of those. That's great. But that doesn't necessarily mean that said great conservative will be an effective leader of the Senate for the Republicans. So what's the difference? Like what, you know what I mean? Like what's that disconnect?
So the reality is we are outnumbered by people who like government, who could care less about the fact that we're plundering and mortgaging our kids' future, who are happy to spend money to get reelected or try and obtain the majority. So we're just outnumbered. That's the reality. Conservatives are outnumbered by leftists in our own party and certainly in the Democrats, and that's a challenge.
Will you do it?
Pardon?
Will you be the Senate leader?
Well, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to lead a process to, again, develop that mission statement so that our conference can show the American public this is what we're about. This is what we're going to do. And I've already laid out somewhat of a mission statement talking about what we're for. We're for life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, free markets, by limiting government and providing an effective counter to the policies and ideology of the radical left are destroying this country. I mean, that's kind of in a nutshell is kind of what I think the Republican conference ought to be. We need to be an effective counter to these people who are destroying this country. But I want to try and lead that process, and in that process, hopefully leaders will emerge that the conference will identify and say, yeah, this is what we want to do. This is our mission statement. You're the right person to lead this effort. It's a process.
Why don't you do it?
Pardon? Well,
why don't you just do it?
We're going to go through that process, and I'm right now. I'm trying to lead that process.
If called to serve, sir, would you take on this mantle?
Well, I ran for a third term when I didn't want to because I didn't want to see this country continue to circle the drain. So I'm doing what I can to try and save this country.
Who else do you like? Let me word it this way. You know who I don't like? I'm worried that we'll just get like a Thune or something. We'll get like a lateral move at best.
Well, one of the reasons I'm trying to lead a process to develop a mission statement that no matter who the conference chooses, and we've already agreed on what direction we want to be led. Now, it's extremely important. In the private sector, I was a small company guy, and my mission statement was in my head. And then I got purchased by a larger company, and they made me do a mission statement. But in doing so, I realized this has a great deal of value. This really is helpful to put it down on paper, to go through the mental process, go, okay, what is this organization about? And communicate it to everybody in that organization so they understood the role. Again, it's the difference between the private sector and this dysfunction in Washington. So I'm trying to bring some private sector discipline into the Republican conference of the Senate. Hopefully, cross your fingers, hope I succeed.
I think you should do it.
Well, I'm leading that process.
Listen, Senator, my 7-year-old needed a soccer coach for this year's soccer team, and I stepped up to the job, Senator, Our country needs a new Senate Majority Leader. Step up to the job. You should do it yourself.
Well, I'm leading this process. Let's see where it all goes to.
Okay, let me ask this last question. Go ahead.
I was going to say, when we challenged McConnell at the start of this Congress, Rick Scott wanted to be a leader, and he stepped up to the plate. He'd be a great leader. I mean, he's led large organizations. He comes from the private sector. He's certainly been leading the effort to have conservative House members work with conservative senators. It's why we got by the debt ceiling. So, Rick's shown himself to be a pretty good leader, too. So, again, we should go through that process is all I'm saying.
I like that. And listen, I love this mission statement talk, and I hate doing them too, but they are good in the end, blah, blah. I get it. I wish they weren't. It's an annoying process, but they are good. I guess my concern is that you could still be someone who believes in a mission statement and be a bad CEO. And I'm worried that we could even get someone who's good, gets the mission statement deeply and profoundly, but isn't a swamp creature enough or whatever it takes to be a good majority leader, that we're just ineffective in the end.
So again, what I'm trying to cut off at the pass is a beauty contest test, a popularity contest, and just all of a sudden rally around, have the conference rally around an individual. I want to go through a very thoughtful process and force whoever the leader that is chosen by the conference to have embraced this mission statement, but also a different way of operating, a far more collaborative way of operating. We had no idea the direction of the conference. We've been pretty rudderless, quite honestly. It's just, we do whatever the leader says we're going to do. Okay, that's unacceptable. That's got to end.
Okay, I got 30 seconds. You shake Mitch McConnell's hand for the last time as he's out the door at the end of his term here. What do you say to him?
Thanks for serving your country. Listen, this serving here, it is a sacrifice. And, listen, I think Mitch McConnell loves this country. I don't agree with him on everything. I agree with him, as I said, he helped secure a good Supreme Court. So, listen, you get good and bad, but in the end, Mitch McConnell has faithfully served his country, and he should be congratulated.
And I hope you have many more years of doing the same. Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin. Great to talk to you, Senator. Appreciate it.
Have a great day.